and lead bass.
You take this next. No, you take it. You take this.
I can shout very loud.
Thanks so much for coming out tonight, everybody. I know that you guys just sat here and watched the film again. Tarzan, you've obviously seen it a number of times in the last couple of months. No, this is the first time.
Never seen it.
Well, no, I've seen it, but I've never seen it with an audience.
How was it?
I've never seen it in a theater, and certainly not this 4K upgrade that it had. I mean, incredible. That's how it was meant to be seen.
Bring back a lot of memories, I imagine.
I mean, so many memories. I mean, it was the most insane shoot you can imagine.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, but I was just, I mean, I was, all of the details kind of rose to the surface. Your Darwin jokes, I mean, really.
They're kind of in places where people just go like, let me have a good cry, like just stop, and then you just kept fingering.
But so, just out of curiosity, how many people here were seeing the movie for the first time tonight? Wow.
Oh my God. Okay, I guess I should have asked that last time.
A lot of new converts then, that's good. The cult is growing. Alright, so just to get things started, like not to put too fine a point on it, but The Fall is a film about how stories can change in the process of telling them right before your eyes. And The Fall itself as a film has sort of come to embody that, as the story of the movie has changed from, you know, being a bomb that cost you everything to being this beloved object that has now gained you a very loyal and growing fan base. When did, and this is for both of you, when did you guys feel the story of this movie begin to change?
Meaning like when did some...
The reception to it.
For me,
yeah.
only very recently, last year because I'm not really, I don't have Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, I'm not really not that savvy there. And last year I had a movie in Toronto, and I was there, and every time I was trying to talk about the movie, I was just being, everybody was like, what are you going to do about The Fall? What are you going to do about it? And I was like, but I'm here to talk about it. Then I realized that some sort of a tipping point had happened, and it needed to get out there. So I just turned to my brother and I said, like, maybe it's time to go bankrupt a second time. Get it out there. So that's when everything, I just realized that something, because my niece had sent me these things, and she said people write a lot, and she sent me these article things, because she knew I wouldn't go searching for them when I was seeing it. Then I asked her this question, and she just said, you need help. Because it said like people would write something good about the movie, and then there would be that, you know, when you write greater than 3 and less than 3. And I just have a math mind. I was telling her, like, so which guys like it? The guys who say it's greater than 3? Or it's less? She said, like, just turn it to the side. You see, that's a heart. I said, oh, yeah. And I kind of realized that I was just talking to different people. So when people asked me, I just said, okay, I'll do it. I did it again.
You know, did you, I mean, obviously you want people to love the movie, but did it matter so much to you what the reception was, given how much of yourself you had invested into it? Or it's reached a point where it was your baby, as you called it, that all that really mattered is that you were proud of it?
I remember, I think it was an exorcism. I just wanted, it was stopping me from doing anything else. I just had spent so much time, like I'd been close to 27, 28 years, you know, with the story, and then 17 years of location scouting, and what 9 years of looking for the child. And when it happened, I thought that was it. And then it was just like nobody wanted the movie even for free. And my only thing was like, that was the only thing that was a shocker. And then I was just thinking, okay, you know what, we can't let this disappear. So I worked for another 2 years, and we put it out in 16 cinema halls. And I think all this is the meme of that one multiplying, is that the people who saw it in the cinema just started to champion it, and then people would see it on the telephone and say, I don't come and get it. And I was like, well, it's not meant for that. So I was just trying really hard for all that, but of course it would have made my life different. If I had done it, maybe I would have done more personal films, and then, or if they done commercially well, I would have probably really gone after studios and gone and made maybe Joker 3 and completely killed myself. I don't know.
I don't know if that's
trying
really
for
what
something else.
Lee, your performance in this is one that I have been charmed by and moved by, you know, since I first saw the movie all the way, I think when it hit theaters in 2008. And I know that, Tarzan, you had wanted an unknown actor, a relatively unknown actor for this role, either because...
Unknown, he was relatively unknown.
Well, what, either because you wanted somebody who could more easily disappear into the girl's story, or because you just needed someone who's going to be on hold for 4 years and not have a lot of conflicting jobs. But I wonder.
The last point was important, but I think the main point was that I just knew that the child had, if they thought that we were documenting something, or that nobody in the crew needed to know that this man could walk. So if it was an actor, I knew it wouldn't work. So when I went, I just thought it would be great to get a film student or somebody, because the IMDb was just catching on, everything was coming that time. So I just thought, like, no, we need somebody who nobody knows. And Lee had just played a woman in Soldier's Girl. So I just knew that nobody would recognize him. So when we got him, we changed his name. And then we changed the script to tell everybody that, you know, like, the main lead is her father figure and not him. So everybody thought this was the handicapped guy, and we kind of played it through that. So I just knew that if you had a person who was known, it wasn't good. It was quite traumatizing for him. I think mainly when people just say it's like method thing, I don't think it was that. It was just to stop everybody from, I mean, if anybody's been on a film set, no matter how dark a subject, no matter after some time, you know, the Nazi jokes come out and this thing comes, then you start standing on the handicapped guy's bed and fixing the lights. I just didn't want that atmosphere near the girl. So then it was really hard for him, because everybody was having a great time staying together, but he was in a wheelchair. It used to take him an hour and a half to come there and get out there and get down.
But they would have to remove the lights and, you know, all the flags to get me into place, and it was just this incredible way to and for everyone to buy into the fiction of it. And because Katinka took us all with her. I mean, she's so magnificent in film. And when I watched it today, I just can't get over how much she gives. You know,
But
how
you know what, that's not
generous
fair.
and
I think that's carte
self-conscious
blanche.
she was.
She's being a child. Lee, if I had to one time ever do a commentary, I would do it again to show you what Lee is doing. Because she's allowed to go anywhere. She coughs, she sneezes, I know I'm going to cut around it. Lee, if I have to show you the cameras are outside, all the lights is outside, he has to listen to her and she'll move the story. He has to then move, if she moves, to light her. Then he lights her, then he speaks. He's doing her lighting, he's doing the conversations, and still keeping it flat. So she was being she is a wonderful soul. She was being a wonderful child, but I think the unsung hero I always just said was, it was just Lee. He was doing every department.
It's funny, I don't remember any of that.
Okay.
I don't remember any of that. What I remember is, I mean, I guess I just remember her, and I remember being so, I just remember the magic she brought to it, because the way she would giggle about things, and that's what I recalled right here, just the little way she heard things and kind of twisted things and looked for her words. And
But if anybody's got a Blu-ray or a DVD, when you go back, look at the pill scenes or anything, she'll speak and she'll get out of her light. Then Lee has to kind of go, and then speak from there. And then you do this. I can show you in every place, and a couple of times I would work with him and I would tell you, let's say her name, when she would get comfortable, because we never did, except for one particular take, we never did more than 4 takes. Because the first one she was clueless, second one she'd do, then after about third or fourth she would start acting. So for me, it had to be the second and third one. And every now and then when she got comfortable, I would come and whisper to Lee, and she thought if she whispered to Lee, we could hear her. They were all mic'd and everything, and we had the camera there.
There
She
were
was
times
inspired with him.
and then they would laugh in the other room, and she would say, "Why do you laugh?" She had no idea. But by the end of it, like, she didn't speak English at the beginning of it. But by the end of that shoot, when we're doing that, you know, we would do such long takes that when I was telling her the story of that last act, and, you know, she's laying in the bed, and by then she had figured it out. She'd figured out what kind of happens on set, and I remember having this conversation with her, where I was like, you know, Katinka, you're responsible for Alexandria. That's your character, and that's, you know, we're playing, but we're playing in a serious way. And I kind of talked to her about the scene and how her character feels and how Roy feels, and, you know, what does she want to do to make Roy feel better. And she really thought about it, and we did another take, and I could see her doing it, and I see it in the edit here. And after the take was over, I said, you know, good job, you did that. And I could see how the way she was, like, proud of herself. She understood what she had done. Like, she understood, I did that. You know, I was doing this thing that I've watched him be doing, you know. But then there were some days that she would just play. It would be like Princey would do it one day. Princey was her stand-in. Princey would do it some, and Emma was her stand-in.
Emma was the one
who plays her
yeah.
sister but the stand-in would do it, and then she would do it, and the stand-in would do it, and she would do it, and they wouldn't really, you know.
But then see, a lot of time when she would get comfortable, I remember a couple of times I would tell Lee, and what I've done is, if you don't notice that I've taken some words out of your mouth. So when she'll get comfortable, you say things like, Alexander, did you do that what I said? And then that's when she started acting. Then you said, Katinka, did you do that? And suddenly she thought like, oh, this one is serious, because it's not for film. And I would just take out the Katinka, and you just say Alexandria, and then she kind of, then you can see her whole face changes, thinking like, oh, this one is for real, he's really angry. So a whole bunch of times, when about the second or third take, you would say that and do things like that. But with a child, their learning curve was like this. So you can only trick her once, and then you have to do a completely different trick every time. But they learn incredibly fast.
Well, just to go back to Lee's performance for a second, unknown or not, you are coming onto a movie that you may not have known was going to take 4 years to shoot, that was going to be across 28 countries, that you're going to watch a director bankrupt himself in the process. Close to bankrupt. You know, did it feel insane to you, this movie train that you were jumping onto?
I mean, I was so young.
Yeah.
And it was really my second movie, and I knew how to make characters. I felt comfortable with an approach to that, but I didn't know much about camera at all. And I mean, you should have seen his pitch to me about how to do this. You know, I want to do this movie, and he brought the cigar box that was all over. And, you know, he had the things in the cigar box, and we're going to go to India, and you're going to be in a wheelchair, and you know, you're going to. You know, it was the most insane pitch, and I was like, absolutely, I want to do this.
The script was just a guide. He literally took it on from there. We just had a rough structure, because I would talk to finances and everything through her box on what she stole and what the stories were. And that's just how you don't get a movie financed. So it never worked. But he knew where it was going. So the script, I just told him, it's a guide, take it where you want.
But I thought it was, I immediately responded to it. And I was like, that sounds like, yes, absolutely. But then in the course of making it, Tarzan brought all of his dearest friends along to make the film. And, you know, and we became such close friends working on it, with the whole gang. And I guess I just assumed it was the way it was always going to be.
That is unfortunately true, because when we got there, I knew that I just said, whatever happens, my life from here is going to be downhill. And I would like to think that you guys, this is going to be big. And I gave this big speech in the beginning. I remember Lee told me years later, he said, I thought a director does that in the front of every film. But none of them, I feel, this was bizarre.
But I remember when we were shooting in Jodhpur, that final act and stuff, I remember the two of us were sitting in a shade one time waiting for another shot to be set up. And you said, you only get one of these. It was just, you said, you only get one of these. He was like, this is special, you know? And I didn't at the time fully appreciate what he meant. And now, 20 years later, I really do. You know, I've worked on lots of different things with lots of different directors, and to know what he accomplished with this film, and how, you know, aside from, you know, how technically magnificent it is, how artistically honest it is to this man I've come to know really well, is astounding.
To that point, one of the things I find so beautiful about this movie is how it gets at how stories are inseparable from the lives we live beyond them, and how we interpolate our experiences into the stories we tell, and vice versa. And, you know, I think about your upbringing, you know, hanging on your teachers' every word when they told stories in class, and then going to Iran with your father on trips and not understanding the films that you saw and wanting to sort of follow in your own way.
That came together to me much later. Like, I would say in the last about 3 or 4 years, when my friends started seeing, when I showed them the film, they were like, you know, this is the kind of rubbishy stories you told us in school, and it was so wrong and everything. And I kind of realized that, yes, I could see why the interest would have been from where I came from. When I made the film and went out, I never talked about it in press, because I didn't see where this idea would have come from.
But, you know, after thinking about this movie for decades before you made it, and then actively making it for so long, in the context of what we were talking about, could you see this movie as a kind of autobiography of yourself?
No.
No. Okay. There you go.
My life is almost screwed up. This was just, it was in boarding school in the Himalayas. My dad's in Iran. Every year we'd get closed in and we'd go to Iran and see movies in a language that we did not understand. And I would go back and tell that story to my friends. And years later they would go like, I remember, like, that's what I based it on. That you use one person's body language to tell them a story. Who's the author really? And that doesn't happen in cinema because you come to terms with that. But if you're talking in a market, you're telling a story to buy, or if you're talking to an executive as you're pitching your story, you know, if they kind of start looking at their text, you introduce the crazy chick with Uzi who comes to the McDonald's, and you pick up the pace. So use that body language. And I always thought if you had a child, and they are so transparent that you can tell what they like and what they don't like, but you need something from this child. A lot of people have a problem that it was meandering and going there and saying, have you ever tried talking to a 4-5-year-old and you need something from them? They grow a pair.
Yeah. I have a 4-year-old at home, and this is movie is all too true in my life. I just want to ask one more question before we open it up to the audience. I'm sure there are people out there who have questions as well. This movie is, in its way, a tribute to a cinema of a different time, the early days of silent cinema. But now, looking at it 20 years later almost, it feels like it belongs to a different era itself. I mean, it is a tribute to, or a crystallization of, a period of movies that doesn't really exist anymore. And it's funny to think of you starting then, and having your career all in the sort of the after period. Does this movie embody something for either of you, both of you, about the way we don't make movies anymore, about an old way of doing things, something that has been lost?
Nostalgia ain't what it used to be.
Yeah, that was.
For me, I mean, people always think that I had an affinity towards stuntmen. I think I never did. For me, it was supposed I would have liked to have been a contemporary tale, but there's no way where you can find a child. I wanted to just say that where do you go where no genre exists, and that doesn't exist. How do you go? And I just remembered you came up with Wigwam. I didn't know what Wigwam was. The guys here, because I knew that she's talking about Indian and he's talking about squaw. So I knew what a squaw was. But when we were doing dubbing, he came up. He said, "Oh, Wigwam is the Indian house," and I said, "Oh." So all those kind of things I was open to. So for me, I just knew that I was looking for a time where no genres are solidified. So for me, it wasn't so much I thank stuntmen. But it wasn't about, I was just looking for an era before the genres evolved, and it ended up being a period piece and made the market even more niche. I would have loved to have made a contemporary film that was seen by more people, but now it's culty and the finances are all right, so I'm okay.
It's just a different way of doing things, shooting on location, shooting on film, shooting, it just feels like
that didn't happen that time too. Yeah. No one in the idiot who went to 28 countries with a group of people who would just show up. I would call him and he would just get on a plane and he'd come there. And I would only take jobs in commercials that took me to those places. It was a one-off even then. So I just think it looks like that was a good, now it's gone, I would say yes, it has exceeded to the CGI thing a lot more, but I have nothing against it. It's just a tool, but if you think that's the end all of it, then you will end up with a whole bunch of disasters. But I'm okay with the evolution, it just changes.
Sure, it's not like they were ever making movies like this regularly, so I wish they had been. Yeah, so if you have a question, please just raise your hand and I'll do my best to identify who was asking it. Right here in the second row.
Hello. Lee, what was the hardest thing working with a new child actress?
The question was, what's the hardest thing about working with a child? I don't remember it being difficult. I mean, I guess here's what I can say to that, is that you take on a responsibility with someone else's kid, where you want to be respectful of like a boundary with them. And here we have, Eiko Ishioka, who was our costume designer, and what a phenomenal collaborator. She would tell this story about how when she was a little girl, she had a crush on an adult man, and she was very interested in him and obsessed with him in a way. And I think that that's what was kind of at the heart of this movie, is this little girl who becomes she's just kind of in love with him.
Yes.
And so thinking about the role I play in that, I guess I very much wanted to treat it, to treat her as a colleague, and not she's a child, you know, and I don't want to kind of get too close with her personally. I want to, on the set, you know, create that, you know, live in that honesty that she brought to it. But, you know, we didn't socialize outside of that. You know, we didn't, and I thought it was really important to kind of keep that.
We all did. You're the only guy that was kept separate.
Yeah, because I was in the, I couldn't get in everywhere. So that was, I guess that was the hardest thing, is kind of really knowing, you know, because there was a performance we wanted to explore with her, but there's also, you know, she's a child. So that was challenging, you know, and I think important to all of us, because we revered her so much. We were so inspired by her. We couldn't take our eyes off her. Tarzan certainly set the tone on set, but Katinka set the tone, really, because she inspired us all.
All right. We have another question right here in the front row.
Hi, my name is Teja, and I have seen a lot of movies, and I have only cried once, and this is the second movie that I have ever cried while watching. And
I'll have your baby.
my question is to the thing, what's the story behind writing those characters in the movie, like the characters that he creates while telling the story to the child?
Well, the whole idea was just that if he's going to manipulate the child, it needs to look like he's making them up on the spot. And to a certain extent, I was doing their backstories for the next 4 years. I'd already shot them that this guy did this, and I just said, okay, this guy, he's lost his wife, let's go and shoot this particular bit there. Luigi was 3 years later, Darwin's was down in, when I was shooting in Argentina, and I just said, oh, there's this thing out here, we can do the butterfly thing here. And then I was shooting with a whole bunch of soccer players, Beckham and Ronaldinho and Ronaldo, and everybody doing this thing in Fiji, like to do this thing, and when we were going in a boat, somebody said like, oh, go buy Butterfly Reef. And I went, what's that? They said, that little island. I said, why is it butterfly? They said, apparently from top it looks like a butterfly. I said, great, get me a helicopter. So all those things, it was literally, I was making them up for the next 4 years. So do they have an agenda from the beginning? No. The only person that had an agenda for me, because I have a personal affinity for a script that never happened, was between a relationship with the real Darwin and Wallace. Because they were two people that came up with evolution quite together. But Darwin had done this trip 35 years earlier, and he knew what a bomb he had in his hand. He never wrote the idea down. And Wallace was the guy who, 35 years later, writes a letter to Darwin and says like, hey, this is how I think everything works. And I always thought, wouldn't it be a great movie to show like Darwin is a hack? And this guy says like, isn't this great? Yeah, I've been thinking of the same thing. But when I did the research, I realized that Darwin had it all. His wife was religious, and he knew what a bomb he was holding. So I couldn't do that. So then I just thought, so I made the monkey up and I made him Wallace. And then of course, you know, you just take, when people are really in love with something, you kill it. And then you guys cry.
We have time for one last question. Is there someone in the back? As I am way up there. Yeah.
Okay, this question is for both of you guys. Coming from someone who wants to be a filmmaker, I just want to know, coming from this unique experience, what's the most important thing you guys think you learned?
Don't do what I did. You can ask him. So mine is not the way you want to go.
I mean, well, I guess I would say just work, just make it. Make whatever you want to make. Make it, just do it, film it. You know, film it, make it, don't think about it. Get your friends together and do it. That's what Tarzan did here. I mean, on a really big scale, he did it, but it's like it was, everyone adored you on that set. You adored everyone. That's why we were all there.
I love, this is the only thing I know how to do. As my girlfriend will tell you, I'm quite useless in everything else. It's just, I love filming. But that time, it used to be about learning how to capture images. Now, anybody who has a telephone knows how to do it. So the competition now is to get eyeballs on what you do. So I don't know how to, whenever anybody asks me, I just go like, I don't know. My standard line in school used to be sleep your way up to the middle and then you work something out. It doesn't work either. If you have to work at some particular point, start working right now. So I just don't know. I just say make something. And we had a lot of teachers who used to just be yourself. And then we had a whole bunch of students that were pretty useless. They work themselves and they work with shit. So I don't know. If you want a bigger audience or do you want personal stuff, don't mix the two. If you want to make something that you think only you and your grandmother will like, then make it on the telephone. But if you need a bigger audience, unless, you guys can't control, you have a joker. You just want to make sure that, be responsible to the money. If you want bigger crowds, play the probability game.
But this, the thing about this has been, like you had mentioned earlier, when we came out of the gate, yeah, there was, it was hard. That was challenging, I think, for all of us. But in the, almost 20 years that has passed, the movie has earned this audience of people who just connect to it. There was no media narrative around the movie. The industry didn't kind of take it on to kind of catch people in. The movie did that, and the movie did that through was it only 16 screenings?
16, but it took me 2 years to work again to get 16 theaters that would show.
So the 16
but it
theaters
stands for
and then
2
the
years without
DVDs
anything.
that have been sitting on eBay for like $100 a piece. So that, all of these people have connected to the film and recommended it to their friends, and it's
a hard
business
business
right now
question
to be
is,
doing that, to kind of have this moment where,
It's
it's
fantastic
like we
for me.
didn't, we were suddenly like people like it.
I don't know how to be thankful, and I look at it and I go like, where the fuck were you 20 years ago? I'm seeing that, and then last time there was a girl in the listening audience who went like, I was 1 year old and I didn't have a car. And I went like,
That's no excuse.
Right. That's good. But on your question, it is a hard business. It's always been. It's 99.9% of the people in the world want to do it. So I always tell my crew, it's a serious thing that you have to make this. And if it was easy, I always tell them, you'd all be brown. I would just hire family. It's not easy. So.
And on that note, once again, please put it up for Tyson and Luke.